once you do this breath work to the point where it becomes a part of you, like it's now an established practice that you have, that you can turn to and that you do, it almost becomes your response, right? I did not say reaction. It becomes a response to the situation. I do a lot of public speaking, like high pressure things like that. I notice now it comes naturally. I'll be getting ready to get on the stage. I'll be handed the mic and it makes the biggest difference. And now it's automatic.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sovereign Self Show, where you learn how your body and emotions are not in the way. They are leading the way. And today we are talking with the amazing Ashton August, all things mental health, mindfulness, yoga, anxiety, presence, connection to self, all the things that we're about here today. So I'm excited to see how where this conversation goes into the unknown. But before, this episode is sponsored by Golden Rule Mushroom Company. Their products and medicines have made such a huge difference in supporting my nervous system and helping me feel more balanced and grounded. They even have a quiz to help you find your perfect microdosing journey. Make sure to use code LAUREN10, that's LOREN10, at goldenrulemushrooms.com for 10% off your first purchase. A little bit more about Ashton. She is a distinguished author, yoga and meditation instructor, and leader in the wellness space. Dedicated to promoting mindfulness and holistic well-being, she has built a thriving online community through her popular website, Ualigned.com, and app Ualigned Classes. Ashton holds her MFA in creative nonfiction writing and has published 2 previous books, A Year of Self-Motivation for Women and Learn, Grow, Shift, 30 Days of Personal Growth. Her approachable and motivational style has made her a beloved figure in the wellness community, where she continues to inspire individuals to embrace a balanced, mindful lifestyle through her books, teacher trainings, workshops, and retreats. And we just talked off air. 10 years ago, it was her birth of this. So welcome, beautiful goddess Ashton, to our show.
Thank you so much, Loren, for having
Yeah.
me. Thank you for that lovely introduction as well. I have been so looking forward to our time today. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in and listening.
Yes. So 10 years ago, I can't even, it's where I was 10 years ago. Yes, it's like, whew, many lifetimes ago, right?
Where were you 10 years ago? Give us the little snippet. The listeners want to know, Loren.
I know, they know. They're like, nah. So actually, here's a manifestation story. Yesterday, I was doing a meditation, opening my heart and then opening my third eye and connecting the two. Getting back into some Dr. Joe Dispenza meditations. I was into his work for a while and I haven't met it. So I was like, let's just try. So I did it. I get a phone call from a car insurance company saying, hey, that accident you were in June 2015, that deductible that you never got back, we have it now. The person who hit me didn't have insurance. I was covered, but I didn't get the deductible back. And now I'm getting $500 just sent to me in the mail that I totally forgot about.
From 10 years?
10 years ago.
Oh my goodness, babe. And you know what's so funny is when people say, you can manifest abundance and all of a sudden, you'll be finding money and resources and opportunities coming to you from places you never expected.
Yeah.
Is that not the primo example? A decade later. I love this for you. It is raining down abundance on Loren.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, okay, all right. I know it works, but you're like, some of those moments you're like, whoa, that was way easier than my mind, my ego wants to make things, right? When we're trying to push and control. And 10 years ago was right before I was already on my journey. I'd really, worked on healing chronic anxiety, was really healthy. I was health coaching at the time, but I was helping a lot of women really just work on mindfulness. A lot of the practices that we learned from yoga, not just the asana, but the other 8 limbs of yoga. And then I ended up getting into a relationship that kind of just catapulted me into that internal growth. Long story short, I know a lot of listeners have heard that story before, but 2015 was a huge pivotal year where I really went in on my business at the time, and I was still working full time, but I was like, I felt that growth, that expansion, that confidence that, oh my gosh, I'm aligned with this part of me that I knew I'm supposed to be here to share. You know that feeling. And I know so many of the listeners feel that. And then we start it, and it's a whole other journey, right? And every single day is a journey that led me here. 10 years later, let's really shortcut it. But what was your perspective like 10 years ago? Was it online back then still too? I mean, that was
Yes.
still kind of newer, right? 10 years ago, mostly yoga was in person, right? So what was going on with you? What inspired you to create this 10 years ago? And what did you learn through that process?
Well, first of all, thank you for sharing your journey. It's so relatable, and there are so many pieces that I was like, "Oh my gosh, I feel you on a soul level on that." So thank you. For me, my mindset 10 years ago, you were helping to heal women with their chronic anxiety. I was full blown in my chronic anxiety. However, I was very much at a point where I wanted to bridge my love of yoga and passion for being of service to the collective with my degree, frankly, my master's in creative nonfiction writing and my background as a writer. And at that time, my then boyfriend, now husband, was in a corporate job that was not making his soul sing. And he had been an entrepreneur before. And so he was really itching to get back into owning his own thing. So together, we decided to create our company, which began as Yogi Approved, and we have recently rebranded to Ualigned. But the mindset there was, okay, we have worked so hard in our education and in the starting of our career. I was an English professor at that time. And honestly, Loren, I thought that was my end all be all. I was like, oh my gosh, I've always wanted to be in academia. I've made it. Here we are. And then all of a sudden, this concept comes out of seemingly nowhere. And I'm sitting here like, are we really going to do this? And the mindset was abundance mindset. It was growth mindset. It was, let's see how far we can take this. And at the time, it was just going to be a little passion project. If we can help some people along the way, that's what we're here to do. But quickly, we went from launching our website, which, yes, it began as an online yoga magazine. And we went from launching that, and we were like, oh my gosh, look, 1,000 people read our website this month, to all of a sudden it was 10,000. All of a sudden it was 100,000, and we're starting to get these bigger brand deals and money that allows us to put more time into this blossoming company. And that's when I realized, oh my goodness, am I really going to quit the professorship that I worked so hard to get to do this thing full time? And the answer was yes. And here we are. And so it was one of those proverbial stepping off the ledge, right? And I was teetering on that edge, y'all, like, oh my goodness, I don't know if I'm making the right decision. In my heart, it says yes, but everything else is screaming, right? Like, what are we doing here? But the trust to do it anyway. And like you said, this journey of like taking the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, right? It was that mindset of, let's see what we can do here.
Beautiful. I love hearing people's story because you're right. It's so relatable. Hearing as humans, we learn through story, through feeling and relating. And you know what I heard, I think we both brushed over, and I would love to hear your opinion, especially as a yoga teacher, as a yogini. This concept of discipline, this concept of tapas, of really activating that willpower from a healthy place.
Mm.
Because what I see in the women I work with now have mastered so many things. They've healed and grown and are so powerful. But it's like some days, like we need to take responsibility for how we feel, like how we show up as a leader. That's a lot where the discipline lies, is like transmuting and alchemizing that and using it to lead with instead of allowing it to take control, whether you end up showing up in that energy or not and taking the greedy actions. But it's that top is that discipline, the willpower to really put your energy first is what I'm learning.
Beautifully put.
Yeah.
Yes. And let's be honest, you were talking about how much you have evolved and grown, and your mindset has shifted since 10 years ago. It sounds like 2015 was a big year for us both. And same as you are describing what it is to be a leader and to show up strongly and to do it through the lens of discipline, commitment, dedication, balance, intentionality. I'm looking back on my earlier years of running this company, like I was young and learning, that's for sure. And so with that commitment, with that dedication comes a lot of learning. And that's why I love to share about my journey, because I would love for everyone listening to not repeat my mistakes and to learn from those and to get like a, a jump up, so to speak. Because originally, and you said this so poignantly, I had that drive and that discipline, but it was toxic to myself. It was not kind. It was not compassionate and gentle. It was, why didn't you do more and better and yesterday? And it was that voice in my head, and that voice was good in the sense that it kept me moving forward even when I was exhausted. In the early stages of starting a company, it is nonstop and it is demanding, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. But I said good in air quotes for those of you who are listening without video, because that was, would you ever speak to your best friend that way, to your sister, your daughter? I hope not. And so why do we treat ourselves this way? And I think as women, we do this a lot. I think as, any entrepreneurs who are listening, any type A personalities out there, I mean, living in America, this country is very culturally, like pressure, go, 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 do, more, more, more. We subconsciously begin to subscribe to this at the cost of our own well-being. And so if there's one, takeaway or summary of who I was and how I operated then versus now, not saying I'm perfect, no one ever is, but the difference is that softness. Now I have patience with myself. I not only I have a non-negotiable of taking ample time off to pour back into my cup, because we all know as healers, teachers, leaders, you can't pour into others when your cup is empty. And coming off of not one, but 2 rounds of total burnout, I can personally attest to how crucial that is.
Thank you for sharing that. I think the whole I'm hoping what I'm seeing is a lot of us are waking up to that fact, to that balance aspect of integration of those energies, not resisting and vilifying that part of ourselves, but how can we use those positive aspects in that dance of the feminine, of the masculine, of the inner and outer projection as well. But I know a lot of like what you help women with, whether it's through your books or your website, your membership, is the mindfulness aspect, especially anxiety. And I would love to hear like what your perspective. We talk about anxiety a lot here still. What your perspective, like what actually is anxiety? Like why is it happening?
Yes, I'm so glad you asked this question for many reasons. I'll begin with the least important, which is my shameless plug that my new book is about to come out. And it is literally called 101 Mindfulness Practices to Ease Anxiety. So, this is a topic very near and dear to me as someone who lived most of my life with debilitating anxiety. And as a yoga and meditation and breathwork guide in my work that I do, I work with a lot of female entrepreneurs. I see this rampantly, and not just for women, of course. We love our guys and our non-binary friends, but all of us are dealing with some level of anxiety. And when we hear anxiety, some people feel like it's synonymous with stress. When we hear anxiety, most people feel like it's this very daunting, scary thing to kind of run from, avoid at all costs, or maybe that was just me. But having lived with anxiety for so long and then committing myself to doing work in the mental wellness space to learn more about how can we empower ourselves with tools to, as you mentioned, harness these energies in a way that is empowering and, dare I say, even productive. Anxiety, and this is a practice that I offer in my book, this is a practice that I teach. What if we can just peel back the layers of our preconceptions around anxiety and boil it down to the basis of, this is a presence in our lives that is here to tell us something. What is it here to tell us? Now, I am not diminishing by any means anyone's anxiety or anyone's mental health struggles. These are very real challenges that we face. Simultaneously, when we can address it through that lens, what happens? First of all, we take away a lot of the fear, a lot of the unknown, uncertainty, and we can even bring it to a point. So I'll kind of break down this practice. We can bring it to a point where we say, hey, anxiety, can I invite you to come sit with me? And when we do that, I get goosebumps still because this practice just makes me want to cry. Because the first time I did it, you can imagine it was like ugly crying. What we do is we disarm it. And then when we ask it to come sit with us, we can give it a name. We can attribute colors to it, and we can say, what are you here to tell me? First of all, thank you for being here. I know that you have a purpose. And oftentimes our anxiety is a protective mechanism, or it is the sirens going off inside of us like, hey, this is something that we need to address. So when we start to uncover tools to actually address it, it can be very revealing for actually what we need, right? So all these years of my anxiety, I'll apply it to myself as an example. When I started to really look at the root, when I wasn't afraid anymore to kind of peel up that rug and look what's underneath, my anxiety was screaming for me to, Ashton, please slow down. Ashton, please be kind to yourself. Ashton, please nurture and nourish and take care of yourself. We need you to do this. Otherwise, we're just going to keep being here with all of this anxiety. Oh my goodness. And so my shoulders dropped saying that, right? Because when I realized that, I was able to not just acknowledge what it was there to tell me, I was then able to thank it and send it on its way. Now, that's not to say that I don't ever deal with anxiety anymore. Of course I do. When it happens now, though, I have the mindfulness tool belt to recognize it in the moment, because so often what happens is we're dealing with anxiety and we don't even realize it in the moment. It can manifest as tightness in your chest, butterflies in your stomach, clenching, right? Fear, shit, all the things. But when we pull back a moment and we have that mindfulness to say anxiety is present, that takes it down a lot right there. Then when we can posit some inquiry, what's going on here, what's maybe behind this, we can get a little deeper. And it's a work. It's an ongoing work in progress, but isn't that the most important work that we can ever do for ourselves?
I mean, mic freaking drop, yes. Amen. Yeah, I mean, it is, and it's. I think subconsciously when I started this journey, like I had a quarter life crisis. That's my anxiety came during my college graduation. Undergrad, I'm 22, walk into as a sensitive soul, but not knowing it to the extent that I know now. And all these people are here, all the other people's anxiety, right? My anxiety. And I had my first panic attack. And it was just my life flashed before my eyes, like prepared every moment since I can remember for this. I was a little kid, like, get the good grades, be the good girl, get the good school, good job, all of that stuff. I know so many of us relate to. Our parents were doing the best they could. I love my parents. Their hearts were in the right place. But I found myself there going, this is not my life. I didn't realize it then, right? I didn't have these tools, but that's what really started to guide me searching. Cause I'm like, there's gotta be more to life than just this. And what I've found, there's always something, like you said beautifully, underneath that anxiety or panic. There's always maybe a deeper emotion or a deeper process or program that's waiting to be seen. It's very much like inner child work in a way. There's always that diamond ready to be revealed. And practices like yoga, practices like meditation and breath work have all transformed my life and my relationship with anxiety. Doesn't mean that it's not ever there. Hello. We're recording this at April 1st, but we just went through a huge eclipse portal, and that freaking knocked me on my anxiety socks. And I was just like, I was just anxious, just this low grade anxious the whole time. And I'm like, okay, clearly something's up. Clearly I've got to tune in. This is my sign to tune in, just as any emotion would be. So, long story short, I would love to hear like how that's such a beautiful practice. How do we long term start to build that muscle to let go of the judgment, maybe let go of the fight or flight response, and to be able to gently start to be like, oh, okay, this is what I'm feeling, time to tune inward, and whatever that practice may be. How do we start to develop that I really think of it as a muscle.
Absolutely. It is a muscle to strengthen. I love that you say that. I use that all the time. It begins with the practice of mindfulness. And what is mindfulness? It's a buzzword. We're hearing it all the time. But, the simple definition is being fully present in the moment and all that it brings us. And then the bonus point is without judgment. And so that without judgment is huge because we live in a world where everything is good, bad, right, wrong, it's light, it's dark, it's all these things. But mindfulness transcends all of those labels and is non dualistic. Mindfulness says it just is, right? Our brains want to go, it's bad, it's good, it's right, it's wrong. Mindfulness goes, it just is. And so when we practice the art of mindfulness, it's a muscle that we strengthen. So when you go to do your first plank pose, you're not going to hold that plank pose for a minute. You're going to hold it for 10 seconds. You're going to be all shaky. You're going to bring your knees to the ground and you're going to be like, "Oh my, I'm so glad that's over." But you keep practicing it and over time all of a sudden you can do it for 30 seconds no problem. Mindfulness acts the same way. So when we set an intention that we are going to be fully present and recognize those moments when anxiety strikes or when anxiety is present. It doesn't mean that magically, right away, you're going to recognize it every time. You're going to pull it out of your brain, delete it right away every time. But with not just consistency, but also with the compassion and grace of realizing I'm not going to remember every time, and that's okay. But when I do, that's a win. Then we're able to build that muscle. And over time, we're going to recognize it more quickly, more aptly. And then comes the next step of, okay, I'm recognizing it. Now we can start to address it. Here's one of my favorite practices for addressing anxiety in the moment. Let's all try it together because it's so quick and simple. Unless you're driving, in which case, please keep your eyes open. But otherwise, we're going to softly close our eyes or simply soften your gaze if that feels more safe for you. Guide a palm over your heart and your other hand over your stomach. And take a deep breath in through your nose with me. Take a deep sigh out of your mouth. And then silently to yourself, repeat after me, I love you and I am listening. And even better is to say your name. So, for example, I love you, Ashton, and I am listening. And taking a few moments in this place is a beautiful way to connect deeper to yourself and to create a safe container for yourself to respond with what it is you need to hear. And so this won't happen right away. It might not happen every time, but trust that over time, you'll break down those barriers and you'll be able to hear your own beautiful diamond mind intuition. When you're ready, you can softly open your eyes if they were closed, take a deep breath in and out. But that practice has come through for me many times. And I'm curious how it felt for you. Not that any insights had to come through in that moment, Loren, but was that calming and grounding and
Yeah, I think for me, it made me feel similar to like alternative nostril breathing, also yogic breath, which was a lifesaver when I was like really on the verge of panic attacks.
mm,
I kind of felt like that sense of calm, of grounded centeredness through that. But,
yes.
that goes to say, I love how your book is 101 techniques, right? Because sometimes one works in the moment and sometimes you're really trying to force it, right? And it's like affirmations for me can be so powerful getting into that space, kind of simplified of like what we just did. But then other times I'm like, ooh, I need not something to do more heavy lifting, but it's like I really need to kind of shake things up. And which leads me to what I want to talk to you. The next thing is breath work.
Mm-hmm.
Our prana, our life force energy, that has cracked me open in so many ways, so healing just from our breath. I've activated Kundalini energy. I've had blissful orgasmic experiences. I've had very painful experiences. I've had, seen things, experienced things just from breathing. And so I'd love to talk breath work and also your perspective of like, those things are so transformational, whether you go to a retreat or you're practicing at home. But it's also about, yes, I have a mystical experience. Yes, energy was moving. Yes, I feel reborn. But then when we go back to our lives, who are we going to be? There's the balance and disconnect. I see a lot of people, including myself,
Myself first and foremost.
Yeah. That's how I know firsthand experience.
Thank you for, oh my gosh, you said so much. Breath work is huge. And also to acknowledge briefly what you said previously, that some days certain practices will simply not work. Some days, depending on the mindset you're in, they could exacerbate the situation. So that's not something to fear. It's simply something to be aware of, so that if you are doing a practice one day and you're like, this is not working, there's even times where certain breathwork techniques are not beneficial. If I am in a very anxious state, the last thing I want is more structure, more whatever. So the point is, 101 practices, because there's a chapter for meditation, there's a chapter for yoga, there's a chapter for breath work, there's mindset techniques, there's a mindfulness applied chapter, because what might work one day or for one person won't work for the next, and that's okay. And that's the beautiful journey of exploring what does resonate, with honesty and openness, right? This isn't working, let's try something new. So with that said, coming back to the breath work is everything you said. As you were listing kind of the different experiences you've had, I was filling in my versions of like, yes, that. And yeah, I had a near-death experience over the summer, and I was very blessed in the timing that just 3 weeks later, I was at one of my women's retreats that I facilitate. And one of our offerings is a guided breathwork and sound healing journey. Loren, I broke down and cried out all of the trauma from that near-death experience. And there was, I would say, like 80% of the trauma was healed in that one breathwork journey. That's how powerful these experiences can be. So you mentioned earlier that prana, that life force. Well, in yoga, we call breathwork pranayama, which is the vehicle of breath, right? The vehicle of life force energy. We are controlling that with our breath, which is beautiful. And there's endless techniques. And what I love, something else you said. So later today, I'm teaching a mindfulness and breathwork event for the nonprofit that I serve on the board for. And since I mentioned, I've got to brag on this real quick. I'm so proud of this nonprofit, not me, the nonprofit. It's called the Flex Foundation. And we bring opportunities in travel, entrepreneurship, and wellness to underserved communities. And so now more than ever, do we need to double down on these efforts? And I'm bringing this event as the first virtual event that we offer. And the point is in simplicity. I'm not going to be leading everyone through the alternate nostril breathing or any of these complex. I love Nadi Shodhana, by the way. I'm just saying, I'm going to lead them through a very simple yet very impactful form of breath work that I'm going to bring to you all in just a moment, if that's okay. Because I want to convey the fact that this is not breath work, mindfulness, wellness, any of it. These are not practices that are reserved for the privileged few, for the person who has experience already. No, all of these practices are accessible to everyone. And it's paramount to me that we make that known. Accessibility is so important. And so it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be this etheric thing. It can be as simple as a deep breath in and a deep sigh out. The breath work that I'm going to be teaching this evening that I love so much is the physiological sigh. Have you heard of that before, Loren? Ooh, yeah. Can we do it really quick? Okay, awesome. So the physiological sigh, this includes 2 inhales through our nose and an exhale through the mouth, and it goes like this. We'll take a deep inhale through the nose and then take a shorter, sharper sip in, and now breathe it all out through pursed lips like you're blowing out a candle. We're going to do 2 more rounds of that. So deep inhale through the nose, shorter, sharper sip, breathe it all out, and final round as you are ready. Deep breath in, shorter sip, hold at the top, and now blow out your candle fully. Now I just invite you all to take a moment to pause, eyes opened or closed, but notice how you feel. notice any subtle shifts, tune in to the sensations in your body, and resume your natural breathing. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. So that was cute. I got a little like eyebrow lift from
I
Loretta.
know. I'm like, oh, I just went straight to my pineal gland, third eye. Because, I mean, your point of focus in your breath. I've also been doing a lot of Kundalini breathwork practices almost
Nice.
daily, which is, there's so many different kinds of breathwork, right? Like you said, to
Yes.
make it more approachable for every day. You still need that. But for people who are probably listening to this show, right, who are on this path, who are the seekers, are like searching to grow and to let go of past traumas and ancestral this and past lifetime that, and are wanting to really awaken those gifts, is so easy, and it doesn't have to be complicated, right? Like sometimes I haven't practiced Kundalini yoga in years because I felt like the structure of it, right? Like you were saying earlier, it's like it just didn't feel right. Doing other practices, but now I'm getting back into it and I'm appreciating it from a different perspective, a different, you know, now it's like I feel like the pendulum has to swing sometimes in our lives to be like super disciplined to not, and then now it's like, okay, let's find the middle. Breathwork, you can find whatever kind of practice you need and use that focus to work with your energy, because our emotions, bringing this back, our emotion, if you look at the word emotion, energy, motion, energy and motion, that is our Kundalini life force. And for me, a lot of my experience with anxiety has been, it is calling me to come back to myself. There's a message underneath, but the reason why it feels so powerful, because hello, we're powerful, but it's literally my life force energy being like, hello, Lauren, like, let's wake up. Like, come on, do something. This is unexpressed, unfocused energy that wants to flow through you. So I'd love to hear your perspective on that, whether it is emotional or energetic, because we talk about weird things here. We talk about Kundalini awakening here and all that kind of stuff. What's been your
Weird,
practice?
it's juicy.
It is juicy. I love it.
I'm sorry I cut you off. What were you about
Oh,
to ask?
you're good. Yeah. What's been your experience with that? Either whether it's a perspective shift or like an experience you've had with your breath. Because I find like I get altered states of consciousness and downloads through,
Oh yeah.
like, the other day I was just being the bitch. I was just really angry and
You're loud.
yeah, but I'm
Lots
allowed
of
and I
things to
don't
be
even want
angry
to.
about.
Exactly. And it wasn't even about anything, right? And it's like,
That's fine too. That's fine too. All is welcome here, babe.
and then I'm like, I don't even want to do breath work. I'm like, well, just sit down, do one round. Like I'm talking, it's like you talk to yourself, just do one round. If you don't feel better,
Yeah.
I'm like negotiating with terrorists or a toddler, more so less. And then it always happens, and I know it always happens, and I'm like, oh, okay, I do feel better. Let's do another round, and let's do another round, and let's do another round, and then I get to the point where I'm like, okay, let's meditate, let's do something else, and I get to go deeper. It's always that resistance. If we just can, that mindfulness piece, if we can just coach ourselves into that focus. Hello, taking a quick break here to tell you about something I'm so passionate and excited about that I take almost daily. Micro-dosing mushrooms. If you are looking for natural ways to support your emotional, mental, spiritual health and well-being, then you might want to try Golden Rule mushrooms. Microdosing is not about escape. It's about returning to who you really are. It's a science-backed way to reset your mind, rewire habits, and reconnect. Golden Rule uses organic mushrooms, 100% fruiting body, accurate dosage, has amazing customer service, education, and safety protocols. Use code Lauren10, that's LOREN10 at goldenrulemushrooms.com for 10% off your purchase. It's a small step that might make a huge difference in how you feel. Thank you so much for supporting our show. Back to the episode. So, long story short, what's your perspective? What stories come up for you in your life and your practice, that how you've been able to convince yourself? Because for me, it's really like convincing myself to like do the thing that's going to help me.
100%. And that's everyone's struggle. So I really appreciate you being vulnerable with that. And we all have our bitchy days, right? Where we're like, I'm not going to do it. Oh, I have that all the time. And I have been dedicated to a daily meditation practice for over a decade. And it kind of started from anxiety, to be honest. I would be like, I have to meditate. And if I don't, I'm going to have more anxiety, but the irony. But that has evolved over the years. And when I say that, I don't want that to sound daunting. I'm not levitating in lotus pose for 30 minutes without thinking a thought. No one is. But what I am doing is I'm making it a point to sit down and breathe. Or even if, hey, I woke up late, I've got to be somewhere. Well, I'm taking my dogs on the walk. I'm going to make it a walking meditation. My point is the adaptability within the consistency and the commitment has been a game changer for me. And I love that you brought up the pineal gland, because I was literally thinking about it earlier in our conversation. Because when we talk about, the societal impact of this pressure to do and to be and blah, everything in our modern society, our modern lives, and therefore our modern bodies feels a little bit calcified, is the word that I think of. Calcified, right? And when we're talking about mindfulness, it's really starting to break through that numbing that a lot of us have, right? The world is a dumpster fire right now. The amount of, Loren told me I could cuss earlier, the amount of fuck shit in this world right now, outrageous. So what's happening is we get more numb, right? We get more calcified in our day to day. We're going through the motions. When we cut through that with mindfulness, with breath work, with meditation, we connect to self, even if it's just a little glimmer at first, even if it's just that quick moment, And thing of consistency that I hear in other meditation and breathwork guides is they say, I will sit in meditation or in breathwork to receive downloads or to gain clarity or to, problem solve, shift perspective, whatever it may be. These are incredibly powerful tools. How do we get there? How do we get to that point? It's beginning with something simple. So what is every listener, including Loren, answer this for me to yourself. What is a realistic addition that you can make to your daily life that you can actually do with joy, right? So I don't want you all sitting here being like, oh gosh, now I have to find 20 minutes of my day in stillness. This is a task to add to my to-do list. No, please don't. No, we've already defeated the purpose then. But instead, if you can say, okay, you know what? Yeah, I like to carve out a little stillness in my morning. Perfect. Or maybe for you, it's right before bed's all I got, babe. Help me out here. Okay, wherever it is, if you can commit for 1 week to do 5 minutes of sit down in stillness, lie down in stillness. Ooh, my personal favorite, put your legs up the wall. Okay. Okay. Bonus points for those extra credit listeners out there. Legs up the wall for this. And then breathe. Okay. This was my morning practice today to prepare myself for our podcast. So legs are up the wall, which if you're not familiar with that, you'll scoot a hip up against the wall. You'll lie down on your back, and then you'll swing your legs up so that the back of your legs, your thighs, are resting against the wall, or in my case, the door. And you relax and you bring your hand over your heart, your hand over your stomach. And if you resonated with, I love you and I'm listening, you say that. Or maybe you simply breathe and you follow the breath in and out. For my counters out there, you need something to focus on. Do a count of 5 in, a count of 5 out. Simple, simple, simple. Do that for a week and tell me that you didn't cut through some of that calcification, that numbness, that apathy, and find even just 1% deeper connection to self. The final thing I'll say on this, because I know I'm not alone, is before I started my meditation and breathwork and yoga journey, actually, yoga was my gateway drug to all these other practices when I was 19 and full of anxiety and full of anxious thoughts and having no clue how to control them, actually having no clue that I even could. What I learned from yoga was, oh my gosh, I got 1 minute of calmness in my mind. Can I get 2? Can I get 4? And so when we can commit to these practices, we can reach a deeper state of clarity, of self-awareness, of that inner self-knowing. And that is an aspect of reparenting. Loren, you touched on that earlier as well. When I do that, I love you and I'm listening. The things that come up are all from young Ashton. They are all from Ashton when she was 7, 12, 14. That younger me needs to be heard. And up until recently, I didn't even know she was there. I hope that answered your question. I was all
For
over.
sure. I mean, it's always whatever comes out in these episodes. I'm like, oh, we're meant to be there. We set our intentions, our sankalpas before, just whatever it needs to be. And one thing to add to that, well, a few things, of course.
Please.
I think, whether it is the world, external circumstances, people in your life, your health, finances, it doesn't matter. The turbulence outside of ourselves is the reminder to go inside of ourselves. So yes, that can look like, I understand that the calcification for some of us, it's like, yes, we want to calcify, we want to shrink down, and that's our calling. Or maybe some of us are angry at life, and that's your calling. Like I said earlier, like I just didn't want, And that I find is like it doesn't matter what energetic state you're in, but that think of it as like the stronger you're feeling an emotion, and you are training yourself. This goes back to Dr. Joe Dispenza's work a lot. Training yourself to sit down and whatever practice you're doing. I do a lot of somatic work. I move a lot of it too, to focus yourself to understand, like Ashton, you were saying, it's like you didn't have an idea that you could control your anxious thoughts, or you could really control your focus is what I'm realizing it is. It's like, oh yeah, they might come and go, but the easier we can let go of them, the more we can tune into that focus, the more we can activate that pineal gland. I mean, I know a lot of listeners are into this stuff, but we literally have crystals, microscopic crystals in our pineal gland, our third eye. How freaking magical is that? And the more that we just be ourselves, the more that we're present and incorporate practices like breath work, we are turning on the physioelectric response, which means when you're doing breath work and you are pulling that breath in or out, you're circulating that energy, and you're just kind of hitting that gland. And through that pressure, through that breath, you are shaking those crystals up. You are awakening yourself up. Yes, your heart opening is such a beautiful experience of being human. But when we start activating our third eye and our hearts together, watch out. Like, watch freaking out.
Watch out, y'all. I love that.
Yeah.
Did everyone else get the most amazing visual when Loren was describing all the little crystals that were shaking up through that breath work? It's like a little snow globe in our pineal gland, but instead of snowflakes, it's all these little crystals. I love that so much. And physioelectric, love that. And thank you for sharing all of that. One more thing that conjured in me is that once you do this breath work to the point where it becomes a part of you, like it's now an established practice that you have, that you can turn to and that you do, it almost becomes your response, right? I did not say reaction. It becomes a response to the situation. I do a lot of public speaking, like high pressure things like that. I notice now it comes naturally. I'll be getting ready to get on the stage. I'll be handed the mic, and it's like, it makes the biggest difference. And now it's automatic. Now, since you're talking about pineal gland and all that fun stuff, one other thing that I do and love to do is I facilitate women's retreats, as I mentioned. These are plant medicine retreats. So there is a component of sacred medicinal mushrooms. And so we offer an optional, of course, and it's in the state of Colorado where this has been decriminalized. We offer an optional guided group journey for the women at our retreat. And for me personally, when I do these journeys, when I do them one-on-one with my guide, the breath comes into play big time. You better believe it. And when you have all these visuals and you're going through this, extreme experience, I notice even then my body is breathing for me, and not just the automatic, but like the deep, we're in control. And so incorporating other practices like that can be very profound. It's not for everyone, just like anything. But if that does speak to you, incorporating other practices like that can be like the hyperdrive, the cheat code to getting you into a deeper state faster, which can be really beautiful and healing as well.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, last week I just recorded a whole episode about microdosing and macrodosing. And we've had
Amazing.
handful of different shows about cannabis, about mushrooms, all that kind of, because
Oh, love that.
it is, we're winding it down. We could talk all day, but it is such a part of the healing journey if you feel called to it. Doesn't have to be, ayahuasca is a great thing too. I've never been called to Mother Aya, but people have.
But respect. Yeah.
Yeah, mad respect for not something we need to come back to over and over again, too. It's something to
Right.
help along the journey, which was a big shift in my perspective. And I think it's becoming more, people are more talking about it more. It's not just, I think of Ram Dass and my goodness, I'm blanking on his name. His partner at Harvard who kind of went into all the LSD stuff too. Oh, I'm
Oh,
blanking on
Timothy Leary.
Timothy Leary. Thank you.
Yes,
Yes.
of course. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Before
I mean,
yoga, I was all like beat poets, all that.
if you guys haven't, yeah, there's a couple documentaries about them out
And
there.
Aldous Huxley. Yes. Like,
Yes, yes. So interesting. Oh my gosh. But
yeah.
yeah, all of our journeys are unique. I think the message here is keep listening to your body, keep
Mm.
tuning inward. And yes, thank you, Ashton, so much for coming on here. It's been such a blessing sharing this space with you. Get to experience some pranayama here today and just tune in.
Well, it was my pleasure and such an honor, Loren. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you again to everyone who tuned in. My hope and my prayer is that this has been impactful and has created even some small shift. And just a reminder, everyone, you've got your little 1 week breathwork homework assignment. So try that out. I really would love to. Can we just imagine if a whole football stadium was filled with people meditating and doing breath work? For every, like, not to hate on any sports fans out there, but if we could get a
Yeah.
stadium full of people meditating and breathing like this,
Mm.
the world would truly transform. So it starts with all of us.
Yes, be the change you want to see in the world and radiate that beautiful light out. Well, thank you so much again. If you guys felt inspired, if you thought of a loved one, please share this with them because they popped in your head for a reason. That's why I started the show many years ago. If you guys haven't already liked or subscribed either on YouTube or any of the podcast streaming platforms, please do. That helps us really radiate this message out into the world to all the souls who are ready to take a deep dive into their own journey can just hit play. Thank you guys so much for listening, and until next time. And that's a wrap for today's episode. I wanted to remind you guys that this show is sponsored by Golden Rule Mushroom Company. And by using code Lauren10, that's LOREN10, you can get 10% off and start exploring how these functional microdosing mushrooms could support your health, mind, body, and soul. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time.